We're introducing a new segment. We're calling this the Offseason Three-Way. It's going to be 3 ways to fix every team in the NBA. We're going to start with the teams whose off seasons have already begun, and we're going to start with a big team. We're going to start with the Golden State Warriors, who are in the news a little bit. One of the more interesting teams as we go into the offseason. Reports that Steve Kerr won't be back next season as coach. Still TBD to be official on that. But you've got the Steve Kerr element here because his contract is up. Steph getting older. Jimmy Butler is hurt, won't be back until at least the middle of next year. Draymond Green has a contract decision. He's got a player option for $27 million, so his future is up in the air. And in general, the Warriors missed the playoffs, and that's not the idea. This team wants to make the playoffs and try to make the most out of the end of Steph Curry's career, however long it'll go. So we each came up with our 3 things, a 3-point checklist that for the Warriors, things that they have to get done this offseason in order to get back to wherever it is that they're trying to get to next year. So number 1, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to assume Steve Kerr is not going to be back as coach. Monty Poole, who reported that it's very unlikely that Kerr is going to come back, is as plugged in with the Warriors as anybody. If he's reporting that Kerr is unlikely to come back, I'm going to go ahead and believe him. And by the way, it kind of makes sense. You just kind of read the writing on the wall. It's like, guy doesn't have a new contract, doesn't want to sign a new contract. If he does want to sign a new contract, it might be a shorter contract. Ownership doesn't really want him to sign a shorter contract. So I'm going to go ahead and just assume for the sake of this exercise that the Warriors are going to have to be in the head coaching market. They've got Terry Stotts on staff, previous head coach experience. I do think that that's something that this Warriors team should look for. I don't think that they should go the full brand new head coach route. I think you got to go get a guy who has experience in that position if he's going to be coaching Steph and Draymond and potentially Jimmy Butler. So Stotts is on staff. Not sure that's the right job. Kenny Atkinson is interesting, who was on the staff before he took the Cleveland job. If the Cavs fizzle out here and they decide to make a coaching change, which you never know, it's one of the highest payrolls in the league. If they fall short, do they decide to make a head coaching change? I would advise against it, but it's possible. If he becomes available, this could be an Atkinson thing. I don't know that they want to wait that long, though, if they get an answer from Steve Kerr early on. Mike, could this be a Billy Donovan team?
It definitely could. And I also think I didn't think of this ahead of time, but one of the names that came out when you talked about Kenny Atkinson that's in the exact same situation in every way is Mike Brown, right? Yeah. Former assistant, heavily respected by the players. And if the Knicks flame out and lose in round 1, and they, unlike the Cavaliers, the Knicks look like that's very much a series that's in jeopardy for both New York and Atlanta right now. So he could be on the market. But I think that Billy Donovan is going to be the hot name. I also think Taylor Jenkins is worth kicking the tires around. He's another guy that I really liked his work in Memphis. Like they were basically the 2 seed, multiple years in a row, despite dealing with an avalanche of injuries every year and kind of weird fitting parts and got all the distraction around John Morant. Like, if there's anybody, I think one of the hard parts about being on the Warriors is managing strong personalities like Draymond Green and Jimmy Butler. And so, like, guys like Atkinson and Brown, it's a different relationship with players when you're an assistant versus when you're the coach. Like, how well equipped would they be to do that and come in? At least a guy like Jenkins, who doesn't have necessarily that relationship, but he's used to dealing with big personalities in the locker room. And so that's another guy I would look at.
It's a great one. And Billy Donovan for that. Like, he's not going to be bullied in that locker room either. So I kind of like him as an option there too. Okay, so that's number 1, hire the right head coach with some head coaching experience. Number 2, bring Draymond back. Let him, I have him opting out, bring him back on a deal that aligns him with Steph Curry, but bring him back understanding that he's going to be coming off the bench. He's entering that Andre Iguodala stage of his career. Draymond, it's time to come off the bench. It's time to embrace that role. You're going to be really important. You're going to close a lot of games for us. Heck, you might win 6th man of the year. But it's time to move into this phase of your career. Also bring back Kristaps Porzingis on a team-friendly deal. So we're bringing back some of our guys on team-friendly contracts with an understanding of their new roles. And then my third point here, new coach brings a new system. It's all about extra possessions for Steph for 2 reasons. Number 1, from an X's and O's standpoint, Steph Curry with an extra possession seems like a good idea. That's a good way to win more basketball games. Number 2, I don't know how much longer Steph is going to play, so I want as many extra possessions for Steph as possible, as many shots as possible for this guy in the twilight of his career. So everything is about creating extra possessions for Steph. So that means 2 things, offensive rebounds and turnovers. We all know how deadly Steph is off of an offensive rebound, maybe the deadliest guy in league history off of an offensive rebound and a kick out. I want more of those opportunities for Steph. The Warriors are not typically a great offensive rebounding team, but when they, at the highest of the heights of the Warriors dynasty, when they were really active on the offensive boards, I think is when they were their most dangerous. So I want to prioritize offensive rebounding. I want to systematize it. I want to make that a part, not necessarily the Houston Rockets levels. We don't have to go that far, but I want to make that a part of our system. So I want to prioritize offensive rebounds with our new coach and turnovers. Let's get some turnovers. We're really good at turning the ball over. Here's a new idea. Let's get the other team to turn the ball over, and then we get the ball back. So we're going to do that. So because of that, I'm trading Jimmy Butler and picks to Sacramento for Domantas Sabonis. That's a guy who is going to be muscle on the interior. He's going to get rebounds for me. Sabonis we know what his limitations are as a ceiling raiser. What he does not get enough credit for, he is an awesome floor raiser for a lot of offenses. He can get you a good mid-range look. At the end of the day, if our possession doesn't go well, I know I can just dump it into that guy, and he could just put up a hook shot from 8 feet away, and that's something that I'm getting out of this possession, as opposed to just turning the ball over, fumbling it away, and then having to run back in transition. I kind of like that as a floor raiser. To me, the problem with the Warriors has never been their ceiling. We know what their ceiling is. We've seen it. We saw it in the play-in tournament. The problem is that their floor is just so goddamn low all the time that half the time they end up throwing up on their shoes as opposed to playing a basketball game. And it's why their losses feel so dramatic all the time, is because they embarrass themselves in so many of these losses. We need to raise the floor in Golden State, and Sabonis is a guy who could do that. I'm trading for Sabonis, and I'm trading Moses Moody to the Clippers for Derrick Jones Jr. and a couple of second-round picks, because I just like Derrick Jones Jr. He's a little bit more active on the boards, a little bit more of a three-point shooter at this point of his career. No, Moody's probably a better three-point shooter, but a little bit more of a defender at this point of his career than Moody is. Can create more steals for me. That's the kind of, if it's not Derrick Jones Jr., it's a player like that, but I'm making that move, even if it means I'm trending a little bit older. I'm not trying to do the 2-timeline thing. I'm not going to kid anybody. We're maximizing these next couple of years of Steph, and then we'll figure it out later. So now my starting lineup is Steph. I'm keeping Podziemski, who had a nice finish to the season. I've got Derrick Jones Jr. at the wing, and then I've got Sabonis at my power forward, and then I've got Porzingis and Horford. If I could bring Porzingis back, he starts. If not, I've got Horford. I've got them starting as my stretch five, and I've got Draymond on the caboose backing things up as my sixth man. And now we can get to some interesting different lineups. Draymond comes in for Sabonis playing next to a stretch five, or Draymond comes in with Sabonis and they try not to kick each other. And we've got that as our front court. That's what I'm doing for the Warriors.
I had a different name in mind for them to go after that didn't really occur to me until you were talking about the need to get more offensive rebounds, more possessions, more steals, that kind of thing, which I think is a great point. There could be a market for Dyson Daniels in Atlanta, because that's a guy who, has not closed every game recently, despite being lavished with a big contract. I think Dakhil Alexander-Walker is just a better two-way player, but even though Daniels' shot has only regressed, he's gotten so much better at other aspects of the game. He is a good offensive rebounder. He's an incredible turnover generator, deflection machine. And if you have Kristaps Porzingis and you have Steph Curry on the floor, you can and you're going to minimize Draymond Green's role to some extent. Not a ton. He's already playing high 20 minutes, but instead of 29, it goes down to 24 or 25. I think Dyson Daniels could come out there and could fill a lot of those gaps for the Warriors and be like a pretty cool fit for them. And I think he could be available. I don't know that the Hawks are that married to him right now, given Nas emergence. So, that's food for thought.
It's a great name. That's exactly the kind of player that they need. Did you have anything different? Did you want to go through your 3-point checklist?
Yeah, so mine were similar. They need to find a coach, and we talked about that. Re-signing Porzingis to me, I actually had and I had benching Draymond. I was thinking that Jimmy Butler and Draymond could really platoon the power forward position, keep Porzingis, and try to get Daniels somehow, and then you could make some moves that way, because I think Butler is still so canny and so good at generating steals, deflections, and stuff like that. And he will always be good at those things. His ability to draw free throws is something that Golden State just desperately needs. And neither him nor Draymond can be shouldering these massive minutes loads, so you won't have to worry too much about them kind of overlapping on the court all that often, I don't think. But really, I think the one difference that I had from you that was a little bit bigger is just this team needs to know what its organizational goal is for the next 3 years. Because we all want them to maximize Steph next year. That's great. That's fine. That's how it should be. You don't want to sell out for a future. This is not going to be a championship winning team, pretty much no matter how you cut it. They're just not going to get it. Even throw everything in for Giannis, right? Giannis and Steph will be pretty fun to watch. They won't have enough around them to be a championship winning team. So let's have one more good run at the playoffs. And then you really need to have a hard conversation with Steph, with Draymond, with yourself, if you're Joe Lacob, about where do we think we're going to be in sort of the 2027, 2028 season? Because is Steph really going to be hanging around? He's still going to be good if he wants to. He said he wants to play multiple years, but he probably won't be able to be the guy who just scores 29 every single night the way he is now. There's no way Draymond's as effective. So like that'll if you think that you're going to be closer to rebuild in that season rather than just like middle of the pack again, that'll change how you think about coaching. That'll change how you think about Kristaps Porzingis. That'll change how you think about everybody else on the roster and what you do moving forward. So number one for me is figure out what you want to do 2 and 3 years from now, and then figure out the rest from there.
So before we get out of here, I did have one dramatic Warriors take.
Ooh.
What if you went the other way on this and you said, we're just not the team to maximize Steph anymore? We actually owe it to Steph to send him somewhere where he can maximize the end of his career and play in games that matter and actually maybe even make a run because we just don't have it. We made our big swing. It was for Jimmy Butler. He got hurt. It didn't work out. And now we're here. And it's time to face reality. And the one thing that you hear about Mike Dunleavy Jr., he's a reality-based person. This is not a guy who's like, he's very entrenched in sort of the pragmatism of being a general manager. I just wonder, like, they'll never trade Steph, so I should say that. But what if you did like what the Celtics did and say, hey, let's trade our homegrown, beloved superstars and just reset the deck? And it kind of gives us the jumping off point for the next thing, whatever that might be. Trade Steph to Charlotte for LaMelo Ball and picks or whatever it is.
Yeah, they could have been teammates. That's a different story.
Could have been teammates. And now you've got LaMelo as your guy that you're going to sort of build around or / with or whatever. You start getting younger. You have these built-in jumping out points for Draymond's contract, player option. He can opt out, go to Los Angeles or Detroit or wherever he wants to go. Kristaps Porzingis, it's been real. Thanks for the half season. Go do your thing. Horford will find a place to trade you. You can come off the bench for a good playoff team. We'll get something for you. And then you just start resetting everything. And you start getting the stuff that you need for Steph. And instead of trying to do the 2 timeline thing, because I do think that they can't do that. You can't try to bridge the gap anymore. You either go all in on trying to create moments for Steph Curry in the final part of his career, or you go the other way and say, we're just going to get young. And we're going to just say sayonara to the great dynasty era and the greatest era that most teams have ever had, especially our franchise has ever had. And we're just going to move on. We're going to shut the door on it, and we're going to use that as our springboard for whatever comes next.
Do you think their lottery has any chance of influencing their decision in that regard? Because right now they're slated to be the 11th pick. I think they have like a 9% chance of sliding into the top 4. And this is like, a 4 or 5 player draft that people are very high on the top handful of guys here. Getting that jump would absolutely change the direction of what you want to do and how you want to time the rebuild, I would imagine. But I don't know. Would that be a big enough trade chip to just land a megastar like Giannis without having to give up like the whole rest of your team? Not that it would be Giannis for the number 3 pick straight up, but you know what I mean? Like that would do a lot of the heavy lifting.
I mean, you could do Jimmy plus number 3 pick for Giannis. That seems like a very fair deal for both sides. But the one thing I wouldn't want them to do is like get the number 3 pick in this draft and then be like, okay, what if we tried to develop this guy while also maximizing Steph's window? Because you tried that before with Jonathan Kuminga and James Wiseman, and it didn't work. And this team does not have the best track record for drafting and development.
Yeah, I don't really have too much else to add there.
You go the other way on it, maybe, and you just rebuild. I don't know. That's it for Good Take. Thanks so much for tuning in. We're going to be back next Thursday. And in the meantime, make sure to check out everything else we have going on at RealGM Radio, including the Double Dribble with Mo Dakhil and Jared Dubin on Mondays and Wednesdays, and RealGM Radio with me on Tuesday. Subscribe on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Have a great weekend.